Namanda, it's Namanda, it's Namanda, it's Namanda, 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 Namanda.
Good morning. My name is Julie Kono Manning. I would like to thank you for attending this morning's Dharma, Family, and Fall Ohigan service. We will have an Ohigan potluck and shaved ice fundraiser to support the Maui Relief after service today. Also, it is Takato's last BBT Dharma Family service. Yay! Before he leaves to UC Santa Cruz. Yay! Did you want a chairperson while you for your last hurrah? No, okay. We will begin this service with a moment of quiet sitting. Reverend C.J. Dunford will strike the bell. We will sit for 1 or 2 minutes to quiet our minds and prepare to hear the Dharma. Then they will strike the bell again, and we will continue with service.
Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namanda, Butsu, Namanda, Butsu, Namanda, Namanda, Namanda.
Reverend CJ will now chant the Hanju San, which is on the handout. If you didn't get a handout, raise your hand or turn to the back and we can get you in. Thanks.
Namo Shishin Kimyo Urai Saiho Amidabu. Namo Amidabu. Namo Amidabu. Namo Amidabu. Namo Amidabu. Namo Amidabu. Nam Shaka Nyorai Shin Houdo Shou
自動車は噴剣流ハトソ上分動数上惑星人伝二乗惑星菩薩涅槃人惑前惑頓妙空人母二小見相上根性理社会無薬論言無知難解語南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南如来教智勇善言万語祝小不退観行みだ教等世即税とんげうぼう大蔵一日七日千勝分妙断中優勝安楽一入弥陀涅槃国即徳不大小無小万語祝実難足一時本の百千言若大社馬小母人六道五邪公未を南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南 阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南弥陀因地本心地頓舍を義勇菩提ねうほう部将楽主法主家主道妙法蔵四十八願因地法いつ一世願意主上主法小言妙極楽古代官病無限量南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏ながとくぼだいとうしんざ天狗ごさいど主上心相公明世本会公将棋優勝会無薬いつちう妙相続せ世脈念仏お上によくひじぽうしょぶこ極楽安心絶唱南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南本師釈迦修行 念躍動根日釈迦尊随喜世法皆無薬各徳語下に心門門門不動八万死異滅無明不可五因利見即是けみだご一生少年開会場南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南不無弥陀具世力ガジが公主者は自と以来上報復現見如来に門本心上呪物起源非がご今日四法国実世者ば本知力脈非本知識観弥陀浄土がに徳正浄土法師音南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南無阿弥陀仏南 阿弥陀仏なもがんにしくどく平不動不正一切道本菩提心おうちょうわんなこ
南無阿弥陀仏。南無阿弥陀仏。南無阿弥陀仏。南無阿弥陀仏。南無阿弥陀仏。南無阿弥陀仏。南無阿弥陀仏。
Please rise if you are able to follow along with the Gatha Higan 1, which is on the handout. Please remain standing for the reading of the three treasures. Oh, no, it's on the handout. Wait, is it? Page 190 on the green, in the purple service book. I will now recite the three treasures on page 8 of the purple service book. Please feel free to follow along. Hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. Difficult is it to hear the teachings of the Blessed One. Now we hear it. If we do not realize the truth in this life, when will it be realized? Let us reverently take refuge in the three treasures of the truth. I take refuge in the Buddha. May we absorb ourselves in the principle of the way to enlightenment and awaken ourselves in our supreme will. I take refuge in the Dharma. May we be submerged in the depths of the doctrine and gain wisdom as deep as the ocean. I take refuge in the Sangha. May we live in harmony in the great assembly as disciples of Buddha and be freed from all hindrances, becoming units of true accord in the life of harmony in a spirit of universal oneness, freed from the bondage of selfishness. Even through myriad ages of kalpas, hard is it to hear such an excellent, profound, and wonderful doctrine. Now we are able to hear and receive it. Let us thoroughly understand the true meaning of Tathagata's teaching. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Oh, I did it reverse. Sorry. Now we will have a children's Dharma message by Reverend CJ.
Good morning, everyone. Give me just a second. Let me get the screen going. This one. Okay. Yesterday, I saw Zora on my way to the library to get some children's books because I like to use children's books for Dharma talks. But I couldn't find one for Ohigan, so I decided to use a parable from Venerable Master Shandao. Hanju-san that we just chanted was written by Venerable Master Shandao. And we might have heard about this story of the two rivers and the white path. So I want to talk about that a little bit today. And so today, since it's Ohigan service, pardon me, my glasses are getting fogged up. I wanted to share a Dharma talk about Ohigan. This is our annual autumnal equinox service, and it's a special time of year where we remember our ancestors and express our gratitude for their guidance, along with contemplating our own birth in the Pure Land. The word Ohigan is written here in Japanese on the screen. The first syllable, O, is a Japanese honorific title, and Higan literally means other shore. So the historical and religious significance of this service during this beautiful time of year, when we reflect on our own pursuit of awakening via the contributions of our ancestors, our Sangha, and the aspirations that we carry within our own hearts. On this slide that I'm sharing, you will see an image of a painting of the higambana, the higam flower, often called the red spider lily in English. In Japan, these flowers come into full bloom at this time of year, and many people in Japan and around the world offer ohigambana at the graves of their ancestors to honor them during the fall equinox. In a sense, this is a way of celebrating their birth in the Pure Land. and holding them in our memories as we follow them on that path toward the other shore beyond this life. Please join me in Gassho as I read the words of Master Shandao. Sentient beings, long seeking and birth and death for innumerable kalpas, lost in transmigration, being bound in delusion by our own karma, having no means of gaining emancipation for ourselves, reverently embracing Shakyamuni's teaching in Buddha's exhortations to advance westward, and obeying Amida's call to us with Buddha's compassionate heart, the traveler accepts and accords with the mind of the two honored ones. Never giving a thought to the two rivers of water and fire, and taking the call of the honored ones to heart at every moment, we trust ourselves to the path of the power of the vow. After our death, we attain birth in that land and meet the Buddha. How boundless is our joy. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 This passage is the conclusion to the parable of Venerable Shandao. For my message today, I'd simply like to share the parable that Venerable Shandao shares on the two rivers and the white path as it relates to this very special service and the open Gosande that we just read together. The parable goes like this. Imagine, if you will, that there's a traveler journeying an immeasurable distance toward the west, over many continents. Along the way, suddenly they come upon two rivers in a single channel, one made of fire extending southward, and one made of water extending to the north. These rivers are only about 100 meters wide and extend beyond the horizon to the north and the south as far as the traveler can see. Dividing the water and the fire is a single narrow white path. This path goes to the eastern bank of from the eastern bank to the western bank, and it's only about 10 centimeters wide, this big, very small, and will take time and care to traverse. Billows of water surge over the path, and flames sweep up to scorch it. Water and fire thus assault the path endlessly. The traveler, having already journeyed deep into the wilderness, is far from any town or village. However, not far behind, packs of wild beasts and bandits hunt the traveler. Fearing for their life, the traveler runs toward the west and comes upon this river of fire and water. The traveler ponders to himself, "This river goes on forever. The only way to safety is this narrow and terrifying little white path. Although the river isn't very wide, how can I cross it? I know I won't survive the day. If I turn back, the bandits or the wild beasts will get closer, and I can't face them. If I flee to the north or to the south, I will certainly meet the same fate. The bandits or the beasts will catch up to me. However, if I try to cross these rivers, I know I'll fall into the blazing fire or the tempestuous waters." The traveler is overcome with despair and begins to lose hope when suddenly they hear an encouraging voice from someone on the eastern bank beside them. "Dear traveler, please find courage and follow the path forward. I promise that you can make it. But if you stay here, you'll certainly die." Just then, the traveler then hears someone on the western bank from across the river. "Traveler, focus your attention with the mind that is single, and right-mindedness come at once. I will protect you. Don't be afraid of falling into the rivers." Upon hearing the two supportive voices calling to them, the traveler believes and trusts in the words that they've heard, and single-mindedly approaches the path without any doubt or uncertainty. After taking just a few steps on the white path, the bandits call out to the traveler from the eastern shore. "Oi, traveler, come back. You can't make it across the true rivers. You're going to die. None of us are going to hurt you." Though the traveler hears the voices of the bandits, they ignore them and continue forward, thinking only of the path and advancing directly forward with a single mind, and then reaching the western side. There the traveler is free forever from their afflictions, and upon meeting a good friend, they're filled with joy. Venerable Shandao then explains that we are the travelers in this story. We're on the eastern shore, which is frightening because it's a wilderness, and there's danger from the wild beasts and bandits. This is the Saha world in which we're living. Our world is referred to as a burning house, a temporary residence of danger and discomfort in the Lotus Sutra. And Shandao borrows this imagery too to describe the situation of our unenlightened lives in this world on the eastern shore. He says that the bandits and the wild beasts are our own ego-centered desires for constancy, for things never to change, for material wealth and comfort, and other myriad attachments that cause us to live out of balance with the reality of things. They also represent those who would draw us away from our spiritual path toward awakening, people who might ridicule us for being Buddhists, or those who distort the Buddha Dharma and teach us lies. We're cautioned to turn away from such things that will tie us to this world of delusion. The river of water, Venerable Shandao says, is our greed and our selfish desires, and the river of fire is our harmful anger and our hatred. These parts of our lives constantly assail us on the path, and they have no end. The white path itself, the tiny little path that's about the size of your hand, it is the mind that aspires for liberation, for freedom, for birth in the Pure Land. Venerable Shandao points out that while the rivers are turbulent and vast, the path is very small and difficult to navigate. Things to keep in mind as we live our lives. The voice on the eastern shore near the traveler when they are trying to cross is that of Shakyamuni Buddha, who, though this Buddha has long since entered nirvana, speaks to us through the teachings, encouraging us to pursue enlightenment. The voice on the western shore, on the other side of the two rivers, is that of Amida Buddha, telling us that they will protect us if only we summon up the courage to follow this path to the western shore of the Pure Land. Once there, we'll be united with the Buddha and our loved ones who have walked the path before us. The most important part of this story for my talk today is the other shore, Hingam. Once we reach that western shore, we become one with Buddha and all those who have walked the path before us, thereby becoming one with that voice, calling to others to follow this path toward awakening and birth in the Pure Land. I'd like to conclude my Dharma message with the conclusion of Venerable Shandao's explication of the parable of the two rivers and the white path. Please join me in Gassho. Sentient beings long seeking in birth and death for innumerable kalpas, lost in transmigration, being bound to delusion by their own karma, have no means of gaining emancipation for ourselves. Reverently embracing Shakyamuni's teaching in the Buddha's exhortations to advance westward, and obeying Amida's call to us with Buddha's compassionate heart, the traveler accepts and accords with the mind of the two honored ones, never giving a thought to the two rivers of water and fire, and taking the call of the honored ones to heart at every moment. We entrust ourselves to the path of the power of the vow. After our death, we attain birth in that land and meet the Buddha. How boundless is our joy. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Thank you very much. I hope for Ohigan today, we'll all keep that story in mind, the traveler and the two rivers and the white path. That'll conclude my Dharma talk for this morning. Thanks.
Thank you, Reverend CJ, for that wonderful Dharma talk. Please rise if you're able. We will now sing the Gatha on the handout. Shinshu Shuka.
We don't sing this gatha very often, but I thought you might enjoy knowing that this gatha, along with Ondok-san, are probably the two most venerated gathas in the music of Jodo Shinshu. Emiko, several years ago, I was at a convention. Emiko started playing, in the warm-up, started playing this gatha. And the Japanese contingent just opened up. It was like, wow, it was amazing, wasn't it? Yeah. So we'll do our best. Learn it well. We don't do it often enough, but please enjoy.
Thank you. You can remain standing for announcements. I'm just kidding. Please have a seat. Could be an interesting service. First, we'd like to welcome the following new guests. You could wave or stand, whatever you're comfortable with. Mats Furimoto, Reverend Furumoto's daughter from Senshin Temple in LA. And I was handed Chenna. Is there just Chenna? Yes, no, okay. Thank you for joining us today. Okay, the announcements. Online meditation and discussion, Wednesday, September 20th at 7 p.m. Link is on the website, the BBT website. There is a college welcome night, Friday, September 22nd at 6 o'clock. The link is also on the website. Volunteers are needed to help needed to help volunteers needed. This is the problem with me reading directly off the program. It's been kind of a problem all day, right? Volunteers needed to the event to help prepare the food at the event. Shifts are 1 to 5 p.m. and 5 to 9 p.m. Please contact Tara. Her email is tara@berkeleybuddhisttemple.org. She's also here today. I saw her. If you're able to help volunteer and lend a hand. The Buddhist philosophy hosted by the Buddhist Temple of Marin is on Sunday, September 24th at 1 p.m. The speaker is Reverend C.J. Dunford. There's a flyer posted in the social hall, and information is also included in the weekly emails. The BBT Dharmanar monthly online study session, Thursday, September 28th at 6:30 p.m. The topic is Nirvana Sutra. Please sign up on the website. The BBT miniature golf outing. We are considering a BBT miniature golf outing in November, either Saturday, November 4th or Saturday, November 11th at Subpar Miniature Golf in Alameda. The cost for 2 hours of golf and arcade games will be about $25, I would assume per person, depending on the turnout. And we'd meet for a post-game pizza a couple of blocks away at Star on Park. If you're interested or want to sign up, please see John Kawamoto, johnkawamoto@gmail.com. His phone number's here. He is also here. I saw him. John's in the back corner there if you're interested. I also have his phone number here if you want it. You can let me know. Last announcement, Jodo Shinshu Center parking will be available next Sunday, September 24th. The gate is open at 9 a.m. and closes at 9:30 a.m. sharp. Please arrive during this time to take advantage of the JSC parking for the Sunday service. Are there any other announcements? Now the students will be dismissed to their classes. Would the Dharma School students please go to the front, do Oshoko, and then go to the classrooms. All others are invited to remain for the adult Dharma talk. We will now have the Dharma talk by Reverend C.J. Dunford.
Good morning again. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Ohigan. If you please join me in Gassho, I'd like to share some of the words of Venerable Shinran, our founder. It is by the power of Dharmakara's vow that we realize the Nembutsu that is wisdom. Were it not for the wisdom of Shinjin, how could we attain nirvana? It is a great torch in the long night of ignorance. Do not sorrow that our eyes of wisdom are dark. It is a ship on the vast ocean of birth and death. Do not grieve that our karmic obstructions of karmic evil are heavy. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo. Okay, I'm going to take this off because it's a little easier. So the passages for today's Gosandai come from Venerable Shinran's Shozo Matsu Wasan, usually translated as the hymns of the Dharma ages. These wasan poetically describe some foundational understandings of the world in the tradition of Shinran Shonin. The first wasan, number 35, lays out the Shin Buddhist notion of our baseline human experience, that without the guidance and direction, the wisdom and compassion of Buddha Amida or Amitabha, Amitayus, our own aspirations toward liberation are very limited. So convinced that was Venerable Shinran's perspective on the limited nature of our human condition, that he believed that no matter how much we tried to achieve emancipation from the Saha world of birth and death, our efforts can never lead us to nirvana of their own accord. No matter how much we meditated, no matter how much we studied, no matter how many times we said the Nembutsu, we could not achieve liberation on our own. This is the posture of humility that Venerable Shinran fully embraces in his writings, and humility lies at the very foundation of our lineage in Jodo Shinshu Buddhism. We can think of this need for humility in many ways. One of the most important ones lies in evaluating and deconstructing our selfish and ego-centered views about life. The notion that we are right and others are wrong. That we are good and wise because we have done much and accomplished much in our own lifetimes, whereas others are immature, foolish, or naive. We might even go so far as to say that because we are better, because we're Buddhists, and others aren't so good because they're not Buddhists. These false discriminations are the ego-centered mind. This is the ego-centered self that's full of discrimination and blinds our eyes to the truth of reality. It disconnects us from a world of interdependence. I've both been hurt by others holding this perspective, and I've also hurt others by adopting this ego-centered mindset myself. Honestly, I think if we look deeply into our own lives, we might find that we've all been harmed and harmed others by a lack of humility, a lack of willingness to listen and to understand. To illustrate this point, I have a friend who I have a particularly hard time relating to. When we're talking, frequently, this person utilizes their vast amount of life experience to explain to me how the world works. When they do that, combined with their particular tone, I often feel stupid or naive. Whatever's going on in my life when I have trouble, this person always has a story that they've gone through something much worse. Whenever I have an idea about how the world could be a better place or situations could improve for a lot of people, this person is quick to dismiss me as an idealist who doesn't want to get their hands dirty. From my own perspective, that's at least partially true. My own experiences have taught me that so often we're presented with very limited choices on how we can be or should be in the world. We must be this or that. We must be Republican or Democrat. We must be masculine or feminine, Buddhist or non-Buddhist, teacher or student, follower or leader. The world, when making things so simple like this and longing for consistency, often presents us with binary options like these. But rarely do we look for a third or fourth or even more options. To me, this friend of mine can only see the world in black and white, while I see it in a bright array of colors, a rainbow, if you will, of possibilities and hope. Perhaps that comes off a bit idealistic or naive, as my friend likes pointing out. But in my opinion, we need creative minds to improve the world, to critique the systems of discrimination and violence in place, so that we can think of alternatives to this thinking in binaries, of being right or wrong all the time. When my friend and I are having conversations and I start to feel belittled, I have noticed that I have a reaction that often comes up that tries to prove that person wrong. To point that my own experience is valid, even if it's far different from their own experience. In a sense, though, when I get defensive in this way, I'm adopting the very same ego-centered approach to which that person resorts when I'm trying to share my life with them. At the same time, I often feel that I want to pull away from my friend. This example of me and my friend is all just to illustrate how, when we lack humility, it's also impossible for us to understand other people. When we can't understand other people, then our thinking starts to diverge from the reality of our interconnectedness and our interdependence, our interbeing with others. If we think that we're always right and that we're wiser and better than others, then we might tend to think that there's nothing more for us to learn. But that's simply not true. Very clearly, Venerable Shinran is pointing toward humility as a necessary posture for the Nembutsu follower. How can we rely on the Buddha without humility? If our trust is placed in other beings or in ourselves, then we will always find disappointment. However, if we place our trust in ultimate wisdom and compassion, then we'll never be let down. This is the truth to which Venerable Shinran speaks in the second Wasan. It is a great torch in the long night of ignorance. Do not sorrow that our eyes of wisdom are dark. It is a ship in the vast ocean of birth and death. Do not grieve that our obstructions of karmic evil are heavy. This wasan in particular is very important for today's service of Ohigan. I spoke briefly earlier on the meaning of Ohigan, but I'd like to revisit that definition again for just a moment. Higan, the Chinese characters on the screen, the middle two, literally mean other shore, that shore. And the prefix o is used as an honorific. You could say maybe that Ohigan literally means the great other shore, or that revered other shore. It carries a connotation something like that. This is a reference not simply to crossing a body of water like the Nile in Egypt or the Kamogawa in Kyoto, but to crossing the sea of birth and death in a Buddhistic sense. Looking to that great other shore is an existential revisioning of our lives. The idea of crossing over is very important in Buddhism, and it's distinct from many other religions, especially in Jodo Shinshu, because arriving at the other shore is not the end of our journey. Our ultimate destination is still here in this world, but we ourselves have been transformed prior to our return once we're born in the Pure Land. There is a parable in early Buddhist discourse and in some Pali suttas about a traveler who utilizes a raft to cross a river. Upon reaching the other side of the river, the Buddha asks the traveler if they think it's wise to carry the heavy raft with them as they continue their journey on land. When the traveler thinks on it and wonders what they'll do when they reach another body of water that they must cross, they're not so sure. However, carrying the raft over long stretches of land and into mountains makes no sense to them, so they decide to move on with their journey without the raft. One interpretation of this parable is about the Buddha Dharma and upaya, or skillful means. The raft is necessary for our traveler at the moment because they need it to cross the river. Otherwise, they might drown or be harmed by the inhabitants of that river. But once they are traveling in the mountains or in the fields, the raft becomes too heavy to take with them. Similarly, some practices in the Buddha Dharma may be particularly useful at certain times in our lives, but if we hold tightly to them, they may limit our journey. We will undoubtedly carry the lessons learned from the help that those teachings gave us when they were important in our hearts. But when we cling to things too tightly, even Buddhist teachings, those things that change our lives can become burdens because our lives change and evolve throughout time. Then it becomes difficult to progress through our lives with this mindset when we cling to one singular teaching. In Shin Buddhism, however, we're encouraged to focus all of our efforts on relying on the guidance of the Buddha. This is why Shinran writes in the promise of Amida Buddha to liberate all beings. That promise is a great torch on the long night of ignorance. Do not sorrow that our eyes of wisdom are dark. That promise, it is a ship on the vast ocean of birth and death. Do not grieve that our obstructions of karmic evil are heavy. In this way, Shinshu sees crossing the vast ocean of birth and death a bit differently from the Pali Suttas. The only upaya, or the only skillful means, and the only practice that we need to rely upon is that of the Buddha. That's expressed in the wish to save all beings, the primal vow. The primal vow is not an accommodated practice. It's not an upaya that works only sometimes. It's not something that we might abandon. Rather, it's true and real practice for us to embrace throughout our lives. All lineages of Buddhism seek the other shore of Buddhahood, nirvana, awakening, or enlightenment truth, but their methodologies are all different. Venerable Shinran encourages us to take on a posture of humility, because only then can we truly rely on the wisdom and compassion of the Buddha to lead us to the other shore. The primal vow, Hongam, is the promise of Amida Buddha's wisdom to liberate all beings. It is the compassion to help us cross the sea of birth and death. The Myokonin poet Okaru expresses this feeling of reliance in her poem, which says, "Ah, ureshi, minori no kaze ni mi omakase, itsumo yayoi no kokochi koso sure." How grateful I am. Leaving it all to the wind of the Dharma, I feel it is always spring. This poem complements the wasan from Venerable Shinran, as Okaru expresses both her humility and her gratitude with her sense of entrustment. All this leaves her with a sense of warmth and joy that she's always surrounded by spring. In reading this poem, I can't help but feel the warm sun and soft, comfortable spring breeze on my skin after a long and cold winter, just as we'll be feeling next time we celebrate Ohigan in 6 months, when spring comes to us again. Finding a sense of security and a sense of joy and comfort like Okaru is precisely what Venerable Shinran is encouraging us to do in entrusting ourselves and our futures to the Buddha. For Jodo Shinshu Buddhists, this is one way for us to think about Ohigan. I'd like to conclude my Dharma message by sharing the wasam from Venerable Shinran's Shozomatsu wasam once more. Please join me in Gassho. It is by the power of Dharmakara's vow that we realize the Nembutsu that is wisdom. Were it not for the wisdom of Shinjin, how could we attain nirvana? It is a great torch in the long night of ignorance. Do not sorrow that your eyes of wisdom are dark. It is a ship on the vast ocean of birth and death. Do not grieve that our karmic obstructions of karmic evil are heavy. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. Namo Amida Butsu. You took mine. Okay. Thank you all for coming today. I'd like to conclude our service with that. But first, I'd like to share a few thank yous. Before I get to the official ones, I would like to thank everyone who volunteered last Sunday at Oakland Pride. We tabled, and it was a great event. I know Karen was there, Tara was there, Casey Mukai, Juliet Boast, and several people from Oakland. So thanks to everyone who helped out with that. I really appreciate it. For today's service, let's see. Whoa, I just had a big blank. Okay. Wrong page. Okay, there we go. Okay. Thank you to our tech team for your help during the live streaming of today's service. Thank you to Emiko and Di for the wonderful, and the Sangha singers for the gathas. Thank you to all the Tobans for contributing to today's potluck. Thank you to Ryan for running the Shaved Ice Station for the Maui Relief fundraising. And this concludes today's service. Oh yeah, that's okay. Thank you to Julie for being our chairperson today. Thank you to Karen, and thank you to my last brain cell. So this concludes today's service. Thank you to everyone who joined us today in person or virtually. And for those in person, everyone's welcome to